that I've been involved in, but mostly looking at air pollution and water pollution. Um, a previous chairman, God, I can't, Bob Palmer, uh, heard me speak against coppers and asked me if I'd be interested in uh, focusing on air pollution for EPAC. And I have pretty much more than that, more than anything else. It's been air pollution and especially particulates. And so I have a PowerPoint I've given about 3 times to EPAC over the years to introduce members to the adverse health effects. And
Yeah, I was involved with coppers too. The whole thing was an absolute tragedy and
yeah,
how it was handled.
yeah, the power that these companies wield and the way they can lobby so hard and effectively against the feeble efforts of the US EPA. The
Yeah.
southeastern branch of the is one of the worst, if not the worst in the country in terms of getting stuff really done.
Are
Um,
you aware of what's going on at the site right at the corner of 23rd and Main?
no, actually, I'm sorry to say I
That's the
don't know what's literally going on.
that's the copper site, and that
Oh
is
yeah,
a
sure.
Superfund cleanup site.
Oh yeah, that I was involved with getting people to sign petitions about that. Yeah, yeah, I'm familiar with that. Um, there's so much going on there, and the wells, as far as I'm concerned, were inadequate. Couldn't really get down fast enough and deep enough to be ahead of what might be seeping toward the well field, the water field.
Yeah,
I'm concerned about that.
yeah.
I was helped by Mike Shirt, who is the head of hazardous research at the university, and he led a local agency in an office just off 13th Street, and
Uh-huh.
he really was a wealth of information about that stuff, and I really regret that he's not involved in that anymore. He just, he's old, he's retired, like I am. But anyway, well, I'm going to grab a little something to drink before we start.
Yeah, me too. So I'm looking for my water.
Hey everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
All right, let me see here. So who do we have right now? Looks like we're still waiting on David.
I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I meant David Moritz. I hear
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
He was just on here. I don't
Oh, he.
know where he's. Yeah.
Okay.
He was.
Maybe he's having an issue or trying to join in another way or something. Let me pull up the agenda. I had to reinstall Zoom right before I jumped in, so I'm a little just trying to get all of my notes together here. How's everybody doing? How was your new year?
Pretty good.
Pretty good yourself.
Good. Yeah, it was good. I was with my family, but we're in different bubbles, so it was like a socially distanced kind of celebration, but it was fun.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's just go ahead and get started, and then hopefully David will jump in here shortly. So we'll go ahead and review the agenda and the minutes. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to comment on with respect to the agenda? I know David wanted to add a discussion about the clean water ordinance that he had submitted to the Alachua County Commission. So I think we'll have time for that. Is there anything else that anybody was interested in adding or any? No? Okay. So we'll put some time in. I think it makes sense to maybe put that. Oh, there's David. Hi, David.
Yeah, hi, sorry, I disconnected there, I guess.
No problem. We were just discussing the agenda, and I mentioned that you wanted to include a discussion of the clean water ordinance.
Yeah, okay,
So we can, I think it makes sense to maybe put that after the community conversation forum discussion,
of course,
because I think that that our presentation today would tie in nicely to that one.
absolutely.
Okay, cool. So we'll put that after. And then does anybody have anything to comment on with respect to the minutes? No?
Motion that we accept the minutes?
Yeah, I didn't know if we were technically doing
You
motions,
don't
but I
have
guess,
to, there was a space in there to fit it in, so I might as well.
sure. Yeah, so does everybody accepts the minutes? Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we jump into our presenter today? George, thanks for reaching out, and did you want to introduce or?
I guess I can. I will have to admit, Kelly, that I'm going to need a little help pronouncing your last name, as everybody has trying to pronounce my last name all my life. It's been a lot longer than you've had to deal with that, but you'll get even with me sooner or later. We had a discussion last month amongst the committee about some questions and some interest in agriculture and nutrient management, and what agriculture is doing to to work on nutrient management, particularly with reference to the BMAP. So I was glad to see that you brought that into your presentation. And I mentioned to the committee that there exists the Swanee Partnership, because I go all the way back to 1995. I think it was 95 or 96 when the partnership got started. And I remember sitting up in the DEP building in Tallahassee with 6 or 8 or 10 other people and talking about it. And that started the Swanee River Water Management, Nutrient Management Working Group, or whatever it was originally called, which eventually evolved into the Swanee River Partnership that it is today. So everyone was interested in hearing about that. And so I volunteered to contact you and see if you'd be willing to speak to us. So we're looking for an introduction. I think your PowerPoint is very good for what we need at this stage. And I'm sure that committee members will have questions for you. But Kelly, all, is that
Ah,
all?
yeah, yeah.
I told my wife I was going to say all because I hoped that it would be right. So it was a good guess. But Kelly is the coordinator for the Swanee River Partnership. That means that she's the go-between person, and she kind of helps coordinate all of the various pieces and parts, and she'll mention all of the the people and organizations that are involved in this effort. It's quite big, and I will say that it's quite unique in the country for what the goals are, and who they're working with and how they go about their business. So Kelly, we look forward to hearing what you have to say about the partnership. Thank you.
No problem. So do you want me to share my screen, or can I share my screen?
If
right
you
now?
could do that, that might be a help.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. All right, can everybody see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, awesome. Well, as George was saying, my name is Kelly Aw, and I'm the outreach coordinator for the Swanee River Partnership. And I actually started in this position back in July of 2019. So I've only been in it for about a year and a half. And the Swanee River Partnership, if you've looked at the history of it, it died out for a little while, and then it had a little bit of a revival state. And that's kind of what we're in right now, and just trying to figure out this new landscape of exactly what's going on, but also keeping bringing in new partners to be part of it. And when I first saw the position, I was very excited because I grew up in Suwannee County. My family has land along the Suwannee River. My dad was a big nature lover, but he also was a farmer when he was a kid, or his grandfather or his father was a farmer. My dad ended up not taking over the family business, but I grew up on both sides of it. I grew up on loving nature and keep protecting the environment, but also on the agriculture side. And this is a very unique position to be in, to where I'm able to kind of flex both of those loves in my life, because I do have an agriculture background, but I also I want to continue to help protect, especially North Florida. It's such a unique place to be. And so when they offered me the position, I was really excited about it. But of course, my job has a lot of little details that go with it. My position is funded by the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, specifically the Office of Agricultural Water Policy. I'm also funded by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection and the Swanee River Water Management District. But what's unique, a little bit more different than when Daryl Smith had this position, is that I'm actually housed at the UF IFAS North Florida Research and Education Center, Swanee Valley. And so I have a lot of bosses that are giving me their opinions on exactly how we're going to do this. And we've been, over the past year and a half, we've really been trying to navigate and settle on exactly what that's going to look like, and what this new Swanee River Partnership is going to move forward and what it's going to be. If you know anything about the Swanee River Partnership, there's a lot of things that haven't changed. It's been in existence for approximately 20 years. We work to address water quality and quantity issues in the Swanee and Santa Fe River Basin. We're a collective of public and private interest groups with diverse agencies. If you look on the right side, you can definitely see that. We have anywhere from the Alachua Conservation Trust to the Gainesville Regional Utilities. We have a lot of different players in this game, because we know that in order to make improvements and actually improve water quality, we need to bring everybody to the table and talk through these things. And we meet quarterly to plan research-based solutions to protect and conserve our water resources. And I knew about the Swanee River Partnership mainly from CARES billboards. The CARES billboard is the County Alliance for Responsible Environmental Stewardship that gets handed out to an agriculture producer or several agriculture producers every year. And so I remember seeing the old logo. We have a new logo now, but the old logo there. And then also there were just a lot of hats and billboards that were around when the Swanee River Partnership was first formed. So our mission statement, this was developed back, I believe, in 2017, whenever they started this little revival, and we were before I joined, and is to provide research-based solutions that protect and conserve the water resources within the Swanee River Basin and coastal river basins. And then our vision statement, of course, is to be an effective partner for water quality and conservation for all citizens. And so we really try to focus on that whenever we have our quarterly meetings. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, our last time that we were actually able to meet in person was January of 2020. And so if you look at January 2020, this is kind of what we worked on. We meet from 9 to 2 on a Friday quarterly, and we break out into groups. We have topics that were either brought up prior or it's brought up by members that I met with them as I've been meeting with them, and we kind of decide, we break out into groups, and we have one group that focuses on different elements. And we really wanted to look at what the impacts were going to be of Swanee River Partnership. That's been our biggest focus since I've been on, is just trying to figure out that plan of how we're going to make impacts and how we're going to improve water quality and quantity. And so this was what we had planned back in January of 2020. We had a 3-month to build and connect with each other because we felt that was very important. When I was brought on, it was a little bit, we had a lot of different opinions, and we wanted to make sure that we all got on the same page. We had a 1-year goal of starting to do on-farm demonstrations. We actually will kind of make that goal. I will share that with you a little bit later on. And we wanted to identify projects and funding opportunities, and we're continually trying to find gaps and solutions to our water quality and quantity problems in the Swanee River and Santa Fe River Basin. And so why SRP? As a lot of you know, we have the Basin Management Action Plan that's going on. In the Swanee River Basin, we have a total load reduction of 4 million pounds of nitrogen within 20 years. We know that agriculture is responsible. If you look at the pie chart, agriculture has a big piece of that pie. And so we're trying our best to figure out exactly what agriculture can do to help reduce that piece of the pie, basically, and just be able to make a greater impact and do that bigger nitrogen reduction to fulfill that goal. And so one of the things that I'm in charge of is that I have to do success stories. One thing that I've learned in this position, and I actually have learned throughout my entire career, is that you win a lot more friends if you are a little bit more positive. And so we're trying to show some success stories of agriculture producers that are doing really great things in this morning. Sorry, my keyboard just fell off of my desk. But we're trying to show some different success stories of what's happening in the Swanee and Santa Fe River Basin. One of those things that we're doing is that we want to showcase a farmer that's doing really great, because we know that farmers talk. That's what it comes down to. They're going to talk about the good things that are happening. They're going to talk about the bad things that are happening. And so if I can show like the 6th generation farmer using a best management practice and how he was able to accomplish that, then maybe that's something that they will then go talk to that farmer and say, hey, how'd you do this? Like, what's your yields? Like, and really kind of talk through that. One of the things that have been with the, FDAC's Office of Ag Water Policy, they've been charged of signing notice of intents to implement BMPs. And so we wanted to showcase how the research center, the UF Research Center in Live Oak, they actually had to sign an NOI in order to perform the research that we're doing there to help improve BMPs and to reduce nitrogen. And so we wanted to show like, we're part of this. We're part of, the UF IFAS is part of being compliant and being part of the group, and that and kind of being a leader and showing others that, it's okay. You don't need to be afraid of that. But on the other side is that we, when I started this position, I met with several people, and they said that, we want to not focus on just agriculture. We understand that agriculture is a player, and this is from the environmental side. This is what they told me. They said, we understand that agriculture, you guys are doing a lot to help them, but we want to hear what we're doing, and we want to hear what's going on with us. And so we're trying to do a little bit more of that, but we're also wanting to partner with them to be boots on the ground, because we can do all of this talking and do a quarterly meeting talking and coming up with research plans, but I want to show that we're getting out into the community and that we actually care, and that we're actually wanting to help improve. And so Alachua Conservation Trust has been a huge partner with us, and that we've actually been able to start hosting cleanups. And we're hoping to, of course, the pandemic happened, and so we were able to do one this past year, but we're hoping to do even more of those starting next year. We'll have a little bit more of doing cleanups at one of the pieces of property that they bought with the help of Swanee River Waters Management District, which is the Santa Fe Springs project. But one of the things that we have really been working on is that, as I mentioned, we wanted to do on-farm demonstrations. Not only do, you know, farmers talk to one another and they learn from one another, but they also really appreciate having people go out and help them and be on farm and demonstrate. If you can demonstrate to them that it can be done economically and demonstrate that it will, you know, they won't lose yields and they won't lose money, then that's one of the best ways of getting somebody to change a practice. And so we recently were awarded $1.8 million for an on-farm demonstration. We call it the precision nutrient application process. And it's all about doing fertilizer. You have the right source, right rate, right time, and right place. And our biggest nitrogen users here in the Swanee Valley region, it's corn. And so we're going to be working specifically with corn producers on using, on banding fertilizer directly by the row. Right now they're broadcasting it, and that there's a reason why they have to do that. At some point in time, a tractor just doesn't fit over the top of corn once it grows so high. But we actually were able to purchase a piece of equipment that will be able to do that, and we'll be able to band fertilizer directly by the row. And we know this works because we actually trialed this with a large corn producer in Lee, Florida. And we were able to take our Swanee River Partnership team, our steering committee members, out to his farm to kind of see exactly what happened or what he was doing. But he was applying nitrogen directly by the row by using a banding fertilizer rig. It had Y drop applications. He actually even, like, we had to create this to make this happen. And then they installed soil moisture sensors, because we've also found that to be a very successful BMPs on farms on helping reduce how much water that is being used. And he was able to reduce his yearly nitrogen by 250,000 pounds, and he saved 200 million gallons of water. And we know that information, the 250,000 pounds, we know that because of his fertilizer records. The 200 million gallons of water, we know that because the Swanee River Water Management District did a little data on his water use and was able to figure that out. But he was so happy with the results. He actually has used his own money. He hasn't gone for cost share or anything like that. He's used his own money to extend the rig so he can make more passes on the field. And down there at the bottom of the link, that is the news article that we wrote about the $1.8 million that we were able to get in grant money. And we just got all the equipment in. We're going to be having an internal meeting soon and starting to talk about which farmers in the area we really need to target. Because of the scale of this operation, we're trying to do 3 farms a year for the next 5 years. And the scale of this operation, we're having to have equipment to actually move from farm to farm. And so we've got to figure out the logistics of exactly how that's going to work out to make sure that we're applying fertilizer when the farmers actually need it, and figuring out. There's just a lot of logistics behind it, but I'm very excited. This is something that the Swanee River Partnership, that everybody really wanted to do. They really felt like this was important, especially since we were able to reduce the yearly nitrogen so much on that one corn producer. And so we're very excited to see exactly what possibilities we have with other farmers in the area. One other piece of the puzzle that we are doing right now, the Swanee River Partnership, we don't have any social media pages right now, but we've been trying to figure out ways to reach farmers, especially in the pandemic, because it's just very hard to, we used to have really big producer meetings. We would have like a big peanut field day and a corn field day. We would bring them all out to the research farm in Live Oak. And we would go over every single BMP project that we have out there that pertains to that crop. And we haven't been able to do that at all this year. So we've been making video series, and that is the ones that are in the red. We have a series on best management practices, and then of course soil moisture sensors, which is just showing them exactly how to put them onto their field. And then we also have our watermelon field day and corn series. And those are just going through different BMP trials that we have on the farm, and a variety of other trials that we have that pertain to that specific crop. And so we're still trying to brainstorm of exactly how to get this information out, because of course the farmers that we have, they're in the area, they're not always on YouTube or on Facebook. This is kind of shared over all of the UF-IFAS Swanee Valley pages. And so we're trying to figure out different ways of being able to reach everybody in our group to get them on board and to start getting them a little bit more on using BMPs. A lot of them are already using a lot of them that we have on here, but every year that we do research, we find new information to be able to tweak that. And so we want to be able to get that information to them as soon as possible. And then if you ever want to follow and see exactly what we're doing, everything right now is going through the NFREC Swanee Valley. That's just one of the ways that once Swanee River Partnership gets all of their stuff, then we'll be doing a little bit of both. But we know right now our focus is agriculture. And so this is where our agriculture producers know to go to get the information. And so this is where everything's going to go right now. And then what's next for us? We are going to continue to duplicate those on-farm demonstrations. Like I said, we're very excited that that grant went through and that we're able to do that. We are also in process of developing a website, social media presence, and educational materials for the Swanee River Partnership. We were awarded a grant from Florida Department of Environmental Protection for $95,000, and we have a vision of being able to house everything that somebody needs to know about water quality and quantity on that website. And so if you're an agriculture producer, you can go on our website, you click agriculture, it takes you to where you need to go. And if you need to know something specific about soil moisture sensors, it brings up everything that you need to know about soil moisture sensors. Or if you're a homeowner and you want to know about septics, then there's something that goes to that as well. And so we're trying to get things a little bit more streamlined so that people aren't having to hunt everywhere, that we're able to have everybody that's part of our partnership, that their information, it will direct them to where they need to go based on exactly what they're looking for. We're going to continue to partner with agencies that have resources to reach a larger group of people. Like I said, the Alachua Conservation Trust, we've really partnered with them on being able to reach a different demographic than what we usually would be able to, since they've been so agriculture focused, and now we're trying to reach other people that are out on the environmental side and just general public. And we're going to continue to tell our story, success stories on the environmental and agriculture side. And I want to continue to figure out how we can be boots on the ground. I do think that it's very important that I always get very annoyed with people that like to preach a whole lot, but they don't actually do anything. And so I don't want us to be that organization. I don't want us to be the one that's saying you have to do this or giving advice. I want us to actually be out there helping or doing our part on whether it's cleanups or just education, field days, or whatever it is, to just kind of show that we are part of this. We're in it all together. And then one of the things that I've been tasked with is trying to figure out how to measure success. And it's really hard to measure success when it's just a behavior change of somebody that you may or may not know. And so it'll be a little bit different with this project that we have that's going on farm. We'll be able to measure success a little bit differently that way. But when it comes to homeowners, just trying to figure out how we're going to measure those types of successes of exactly what's going to happen. And I'm hoping that once we get a website going, we can have a little bit more data on exactly how that will happen. So that is a whole lot of information. But if you have any questions, I am happy to answer any of them.
Thank you so much, Kelly. That, yeah, great presentation.
Thanks.
Any questions from?
Yes, I would like to ask Kelly a little more about the partnership with ACT, with the Alachua Conservation Trust, and the cleanups. What kind of cleanups were you doing?
So they have a property called the Santa Fe Springs that's in Columbia County that they were able to purchase with the help of the Swanee River Water Management District. I think it's about 240 acres, but there's 2 springs on that property, and there's a lot of stuff that needs to be cleaned up right now, because the hope is that it will be, well, the plan is that sometime within this next year that it will be turned into a place where people can actually go and enjoy. There will be trails out there. Maybe they can fish. They're still kind of trying to figure out the logistics of everything. But there used to be houses on that property, and one of the houses that was there, it burned down. And so we were there trying to get all of that taken off property so that they will be able to come onto the property and be able to make the trails and whatever they're wanting to do to turn it into some place that the community can enjoy.
Okay, so that really, I mean, you did mention that you do not only want to focus on agriculture, but also on the environment. So this would be really an example that has nothing to do with agriculture. Okay,
Yes.
got it. Mm-hmm.
I have a question with respect to all of the different, stakeholders or interest groups that are involved in the Swanee River Partnership. Like with respect to the website, for example, if one group does conduct some research kind of outside of, the projects that are officially the Swanee River Partnership projects, are those results, or is that information incorporated into the website, or is it just kind of things that are like vetted by everyone in the agency and everybody's working on together? Because I imagine with so many different groups, there's some differences in opinion in terms of, well, our research indicates this, or, well, we think that this might be the best way to go about things, or is this become a problem? And
well, to be completely honest, we haven't gotten to that point yet. I did send out before Christmas that I wanted their wish list for what they wanted on the website, and nothing that was on there was anything like that. And it is a very good possibility that we will get to that point. There's times that in our meetings we get to that point where there's a disagreement on exactly what things are happening, or like just the differences between things. And so we're trying our best to. Now, I am trying my best to navigate that. I like to see myself as a neutral point source. I don't want them to ever think that I am swayed one way or the other. And so I think it's just going to take, once we get to that point, if there's something like that, I think we'll probably meet as a group and make that decision.
Gotcha.
Yeah. At the end of the day, though, the funders of this, to be completely honest, the funders of this group, they're the deciders of exactly what will end up happening. And you have different agencies there as well. You have FDACS and FDEP and the Water Management District, and even UF-IFAS, that they all have their different priorities, and just trying to figure out a main group priority. That's the important part.
Have you been able to meet? I know you said you had one kind of in-person meeting in January. Have you been able to do Zoom or anything like that to substitute for?
Yeah, we had a Zoom meeting in October, and it was mainly just an informational catch-up because we hadn't been able to meet in so long. Part of it is that we waited so long because both of our grants were so up in the air, and it was kind of like, I don't want to bring you information until we're moving forward with some stuff. Yeah. But we are meeting in this month. We're doing a Zoom meeting, and they had requested in our last meeting to hear specifically from somebody that's working in the Facets program. I don't know if you've heard of that. I'm trying to remember what it stands for exactly, but it's basically several states that are working together on this Facets program. But we have somebody that's coming in. I'll know about it on January 21st, to be completely honest, but they want to bring somebody in on that. And it's focusing a little bit more on the water quality side, I believe, of things. They may go over TMDLs in that group, but yeah.
Okay, gotcha. One reason that we were interested in having you present today is because we organize community conversations, these like workshops that are now being held online, and we try to get as much of the community and different demographics of the community involved in the conversation, and you have a similar aim with a lot of the work that you do. Is there anything that you find particularly helpful to get people to pay attention to your message, to kind of take it in, and to be receptive to the practices that you're advocating for?
to me, everything comes down to building a relationship. And that is especially the truth on the agriculture side. If you come in as a person that doesn't really know them at all, and you're trying to force some changes, and it's a little bit difficult to make that happen. I found that being able to actually talk to them and build a relationship with them before you start presenting on some maybe tough topics, it's just a little bit more important.
Yeah. Have you seen, I mean, I it's been what, like 3 years or something since the Swanee River Partnership resumed its kind of active state, right? Based on what you said, you kind of had a period where it wasn't very active.
Yeah.
So that's relatively short period of time for the, the breadth of the projects and stuff. Have you seen though any farmers kind of come to you in that span of time, or has it mostly been you reaching out to them? Because I know you said some of this maybe more successful projects get a farmer, excited about it and maybe sharing with others. And
yeah, so I've only been in this role for 1.5 years. I know that with the Lee peanut, that was started way before it was Lee peanut that was in Lee, Florida. That was the farmer that they had trialed with. I know that they had been working with them before I ever got on, and I'm not exactly sure the timeline. I know that it was probably 2 growing seasons before he fully got on board with exactly what was going on. So it does take time. And that's the thing. I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand about this process, is that you're asking somebody to change something they've been doing for 20 years overnight. And it just takes a lot of time, because there's the fear of losing money. There's the fear of not being able to feed their family. There's the fear of, maybe even telling them that they have to completely change everything that they're doing. There's just that slight fear of change. And so it does take, I haven't had anyone in my 1.5 years come to us. We've been going to them. And when we have to sit down and really talk with them, and it takes multiple meetings before we ever have something that exactly changes.
Gotcha. Anyone else have questions?
Kelly, it's Bettina. Do you have any organic farmers?
There are organic farmers in the area, but we don't have any organic farmers that are part of our group.
Mm-hmm.
And our group really is, we do go out and we reach out to farmers themselves, but our steering committee is mainly just people that are a little bit more in leadership positions in a variety of different groups. And so we do have one farmer on there. I think he was actually part of the group from the beginning, that he's part of our steering committee, but we don't have any organic farmers on our steering committee.
Okay. Yeah. And could you describe some of the other activities that you do, for example, I don't know, with the Audubon Society or with the Florida Springs Institute? Just curious.
Yeah, so to kind of give you an idea of exactly what was our timeline of everything, I started in July of 2019. And then of course in March, everything was completely shut down. And so between that July and January, I was really just trying to onboard and trying to figure out the group a little bit more. I did a lot of one-on-one meetings with everybody, because I had a boss that told me that I needed to come in and just keep my mouth shut and listen. And that's kind of what I applied to this. I just wanted to go in and keep my mouth shut and listen. And so I did a lot of listening for that first little bit. I think that was very beneficial, especially with meeting with a variety of different groups one-on-one, because you kind of learn a little bit more about what they think their priorities should be of the group, and just kind of figure out where to go. And so in January, we started getting a little bit more of kind of getting a plan of exactly what we were going to do. And then of course, we would have met again in April, and to make those plans a little bit more. And so to be completely honest, we just haven't really been able to do a whole lot. I've been invited with Audubon to go on bird watching tours with them, which I've done that. And then I've been invited on a lot of different things, but being able to do it with the community. We just haven't been able to make that happen, except for with Alachua Conservation Trust, when we were able to do that socially distant cleanup in Columbia County.
Okay, thank you.
Kelly, as Nisha was saying, you know, we put on community conversations, which are basically like town halls, but you know, we do it. We have our own format for doing that. We've been doing it for a number of years now, and one of the reasons that we wanted to hear from you, and I think this is it's a good place to start, is that we really want to be talking to some farmers directly, and I suppose we'll need some brave souls who are willing to to take the risk of putting their toes into water they may think is unfriendly to them, but really isn't. But we have a lot of ignorance. Our ignorance is probably overflowing, and that's what we need. We need to have input directly from people that are actually in the business of farming to tell us, well, the environmental community has said this and that, but that doesn't work for us for this reason. And, we want to come up, and see what the problems are, and, why can't we meet the BMAPs? Why all over the state, the BMAPs fail, consistently. 250,000 pounds, a year, though. I mean, that's not, it's not anything to sneeze at. So, I mean, that's incredible, accomplishment. So, we want to form these kind of relationships directly with farmers, because, getting them indirectly isn't going to help them or us. And basically, I think it's probably more for us to learn than anything. We just need to learn, what those problems are. I mean, problems aren't going to be solved by us telling them to do anything. That's not what we're looking to do. It's, we want to be able to say, see what the problems are, and if we can then be of help to get those problems resolved, to do that. And I think there's other things that, there's types of solutions perhaps which BMPs will not accomplish. And, we need to know, what do farmers think actually could happen? I mean, is it a matter of not having enough money to do certain programs which would really help them more than the ones that the state proposes? Or, are they pretty happy with that, going forward?
So I can tell you, because we've had a lot of internal meetings, or I have with the UF IFAS team, with the regional specialized agents that go out and talk to farmers, and the farmers that I've chatted with. The project that we're doing, if you attended the November Swine River Water Management District meeting, when we presented our part of the grant for them to, because the Swine River Water Management District, FDEP, FDACS, they all help fund that $1.8 million grant. And they told us there was absolutely no way a farmer would ever change that practice because it's too expensive. And it is very expensive. It is the right thing to do. It is the most economical and the best on the fertilizer side of banding fertilizer directly by the road, because the plant gets it right there. It goes right where the plant needs it. When you're broadcasting over corn, especially when the canopy closes, that fertilizer takes a while to get down to where it needs to go. And so it's one of those things where this is one of the best solutions that we have to reduce nitrogen and fertilizer inputs, but it is extremely expensive. They're having to use diesel and manpower, and they're having to make passes across a field. And it takes a very long time to do that. Whereas, when they broadcast it, they put in the pivot, it goes around. They don't have to use manpower to do that, make that happen. And so it's expensive. And if we want to make these changes, then we're hoping, our hope with this project is that we can prove that this works, and we can prove that farmers want to make the change, and in the hopes that they will be able to start cost sharing and make these things happen. Because, I mean, I think the rig that we had to get, I can't remember the number exactly, but I think it's close to $200,000. And if you have a tractor that you've had that's still in working condition, why would you buy a new piece of equipment to make that happen? And so it's just that I think that it comes down to money a lot of times, that it's really hard to make those changes because it's a really big hit. But if we can show them that it's going to be more economical overall and that they can get some help with it, then I think we can start making those changes.
Yeah, I think that's always the key, is making sure that there's some funding there to help, get over
Yeah.
the starting point. Because once they're started up, once they've got the equipment, they can keep going with it. Then it's just a matter of,
Yeah.
forming this new pattern of working. So,
Yeah.
and, perhaps, if, I think anyone that, that would be wanting to do this, would be supported by the environmental community, as far as I can see. So, I mean, that's where these kind of partnerships, I think, work out the best, is
Yeah.
where, everyone comes out on top, those kind of solutions. So,
Yeah. And it
anyway,
honestly,
keep that in mind as you go along. I mean, if you see someone who's looking to do the opposite, they want to get a hold of, environmentalists and talk with them, then,
Yeah.
maybe you can, put us together so that we can form, some relationships directly out here and in the real world, with people in the real world. So.
Yeah. Well, I was very thankful for, we had Mary Lee Jepson and then Lou Merritt. She spoke up for, if you guys know who they are, they both spoke up for us on that project at the Swanee River Water Management District. Cause I honestly, by the end of the day, did not think that they were going to approve their portion of the grant, which means that this project wouldn't have happened. But they really spoke up for it. And it really does. It takes all parties. That's what I've told them all along. It takes all parties coming to the table. We may not like each other all the time, but we have to all work together in order to make changes. And there has to be a little bit of a give and take too. Like I need to understand where both parties are coming from. And so it's been a little bit of a challenge, but it's been really awesome. And I'm just going to be very glad when we can start meeting in person, because that's where the magic happens for us.
Mm.
I have a question about the equipment. What you say the cost is about $200,000 for initial purchase?
I can't remember exactly what they did. It's a high boy. And so it's something that can actually make passes over a cornfield as it reaches its main height.
What I'm wondering is if your presentations eventually get enough traction,
Mm-hmm.
At some point it would seem that the biggest, fastest acceptance of it would be if a group of engineers did sort of a mini moonshot and tried to come up with a super efficient, the lowest possible cost device to function the same as the best possible device, so that you have a Model T in every farmer, every yard. And then they can improve on the Model T. But as long as the Model T does more or less what you really want it to do, you can spread it out, get more, and maybe the government then would say, this is worth, if this is that effective, nationwide, this is something that we should invest in to encourage everyone to have one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And I think part of it is that with any new, because this is kind of new, they don't have the same issues in the Midwest with corn that we do. They just don't. They don't have to make as many passes over the field usually. And so for the piece of equipment that we had in Lee, like he really did have to rig that together. That was not really made in a factory anywhere. They had to figure it out how to make it work. And so that's been part of the deal with this, is that we've had to have this built. And so we're hoping that and that's the whole thing, we've got to prove this works, and then hopefully we can get it into practice, and hopefully prices will start coming down. And, this is a machinery that they'll start making a little bit more for the state of Florida.
So how many of these machines are out there, and is there one company making them?
I actually don't know the answer to that. And that's a very good question. I can't remember where they bought it, because I'm on the idea side. I'm not on the nitty gritty side of purchasing equipment. I don't know exactly how all the machinery works, even though I've been out there. But I know that they had to, I can't remember exactly what company they had to work with to do this, but it was in the grant proposal that they submitted. But yeah, they had to work with a specific company, I know, or they talked around.
The idea of getting other potential manufacturers to have their light bulbs turn on and say, hey, we got to compete and see who can come up with the cheapest that works.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah, that was the beauty of our producer field days that we had. If you ever attend one of them, whenever we start having them again, our peanut field days had the most people. I think we probably had 200 producers there. And the last one we had it back in 2019, we lined up all the brand new peanut diggers out there and they competed. And the farmers were able to go side by side and see which ones was the best. And so we're going to have to start having more of those to make that happen, I think. And just they've got to see it for I do think that this project that we're doing is a little bit more you got to see to believe.
Have you taken it to like a farm jamboree or whatever you call the get-togethers, the annual get-togethers? And
No, from what I understand, it just arrived at our farm. So I don't know.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
This is for corn specifically though, right, Kelly? I mean, has this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can they use existing equipment for other types of farming, for other types of crops?
Yeah, I mean, eventually I do think that this will end up going for other things, but this is for corn specifically because it's our high nitrogen user here in the Swanee Valley region. I know that with watermelons, they're doing something a little bit different. They're working on controlled release fertilizer, and they're trying to. I believe that there's a group that's trying to get something approved right now with that. And so every crop out there needs something very specific, and we're trying to figure out the best way to grow that crop and the best equipment to make that happen. But this piece of equipment is mainly important because the corn can get so tall, and so it's got to be able to fit over that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kelly. And yeah, I think we're all kind of interested to see how the project unfolds over the next, you said 5 years?
Yeah.
3. So yeah, we'd probably all, like to have you back at some point of time to update us.
Yeah.
And yeah, so appreciate all that information. And we're going to move on to our community conversation. You're welcome to stay if you'd like, or you can hop off, but we really appreciate the presentation and thanks for coming.
No, thank you. And I'm hoping that I have a lot of really great news to bring you guys at the next presentation on this project. We've already had a few people tell us that you need to really prove us wrong on this, because we really think that this is the path forward and this is how we're going to do it. And I think that agriculture has been seen as a problem a lot, but I think it's one of our biggest solutions, and we're on meeting that BMAP, and we've just got to work together and make it happen.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so let's start talking about our next community conversation. I know we talked about this last meeting. And does anybody have anything in particular that they've kind of thought about, considered in the interim between the last meeting? I know part of the reason that we had Kelly present today was to kind of see what the Swanee River Partnership does with respect to working with diverse groups and outreach and all of that. And I guess we want to in some way kind of emulate that to some extent with our conversation. And one of the things that I think, we kind of talked about last time and that Kelly emphasized was that whole listening piece, and just making sure that, we're not preaching to anyone and we're just kind of keeping it, in the style of a conversation and everybody's sharing, kind of their experience and their story and their expertise in a conversation style. Let me pull up my notes from the last meeting so I can remind myself what we kind of said with respect to speakers and whatnot. We did say, that we wanted to at least have one farmer on the panel next time. We could potentially have somebody from the Swanee River Partnership. Any other ideas for potential speakers?
Not yet. I think we'll probably need a little more of a better understanding, what we exactly how we're going to present, the conversation. And before we get to that, so that we can say, we need these particular, people or types of people in there. And then once we've done that, I think it becomes a lot easier. Then it's the difficulty is just going out and getting the people that are willing to come and to work with us on this. So that may not be something we're going to arrive at anytime soon, because I don't know. I know people to invite, but at the same time, they wouldn't be representative of the farming community as a whole. They're organic farmers. They use advanced, more advanced farming techniques. I don't think they've ever used any nitrogen on their farm. So, both of them used to be actually the husband and wife. Both used to be on EPAC a number of years ago.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, the person that Kelly mentioned, who was the initial farmer that was trying this technique and had, all that success in terms of reducing fertilizer use and water use and all of that. I mean, sounds like a really nice success story to potentially, have somebody like that kind of talking about their experience.
Have you ever had Charles Barrett speak to the group? Dr. Charles Barrett?
Not since I've been on.
He's the water resource agent in this area, and he has worked with a lot of farmers in this area. And he specifically worked with the farmer in Lee. And so he could probably give you a little bit more information. He is also the main project guy on the project I was telling you about. So if you had more questions about equipment, he would be able to answer that. So
he's
okay,
an
cool.
IFAS person, is that it? Is he an IFAS person?
Yeah, he is an IFAS person. He actually works at the research farm with me, but he has been really successful in getting soil moisture sensors on farms all over the state of Florida. He's in Brazil right now, and he's actually installed some soil moisture sensors while he's been in Brazil visiting his wife's family. So he's really great. He's a really great speaker because he knows both sides of the issues, and he knows the realities a little bit more of on farm.
I think
How do you spell his name?
I'm sorry, what?
Spell his name.
Charles Barrett. It's Barrett.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
For what it's worth, the Santa Fe River, Santa Fe River and Springs Partnership, I forget what the whole name of it is. It's a group for protecting. I think, which is run by, who is that at the county?
It's Alachua County, right?
Yeah, it's Alachua County. And the water manager for Alachua County now, I think, actually, we had a meeting where we went up actually to the research farm there. And what a great place that was, by the way. It was really incredible. And I think we met him there. So.
Yeah, it's a very good possibility. Anytime I have a group that comes to the farm, I always try to bring him out because he is the water resource agent, he knows so much. And so he's able to answer a lot of questions that I am not able to answer at times.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion of someone to talk to. Yeah. He's up there in the thick of things, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a general question, Nisha. The next community conversation, is it also going to be focused on agriculture?
I believe that's kind of what we were orbiting around, like that, the idea of bringing the next one to focus around agriculture.
Alrighty. Okay, thank you.
And
is that
if
it?
we're moving forward too slowly, we can do another one and just keep gathering information and contacts, and go forward and do it later in the year rather than like planning on doing something like by summer. Okay, so it'll take a little longer, put things together on this front.
Sorry, David, just to clarify, you're suggesting it might take longer than, our date might be something after the summer?
Yeah, it might be, it might, if it's taking us, if we're not getting where we want to go with this, okay, in terms of, having that nice warm feeling that we've got the right people in mind and we've got contacts from them and they're willing to come, and then we just need to kind of put everything together. Then we can just, we can put it off for a little later, because we need to have the most important part of this is the people. So we've got to have those contacts in place. And if it takes us a while to do that, then it may take longer, but it depends. I mean, we need to have some, if a couple more people get real enthusiastic about this and, are willing to go out and talk to people or, call them on the phone and talk to them, for however long or however many times it takes, to develop that kind of a relationship, so that they know what we want and, we know who they are as well. If we have to, we can put this off a little longer. I'd rather do it right than do it fast,
Sure. And I think we kind of talked about having maybe, a farmer and then maybe somebody from like a research focused angle, and then maybe somebody that's a kind of environmentalist, being maybe like 3 different groups that we wanted to be represented on the next panel.
And we want to put someone from the water management district on there too. I mean, someone from one of the agencies, either from FDAX or from, from water management.
I mean, honestly, any of the agencies that are kind of, any of the agencies that are in the Swanee River Partnership, they're already kind of, or at least the ones that go as representatives to the quarterly meetings. They're already used to dialoguing with all of the different groups. So, they would all be potentially good candidates to be on the panel, with the only caveat maybe being that if they were actually all people that come to those Swanee River Partnership meetings, they might all kind of have already kind of come to the same conclusions about things. And then there would be, less, diversity of opinion on the panel or something. So
I do like that idea though. I mean, of, saying, okay, well, even if we just go with people that, are on the partnership, I mean, we could even, we've got someone from every particular, direction that we want, we got farmers on there, we have environmentalists on there in our Santa Fe River, and probably also throw ACT as part of that. You've got people from the, from the agencies, from government there. So, that may be the way to go about doing it. It's just to work directly with and through, the partnership and see if, they're interested in putting on, with us, putting on a presentation, here in Alachua County. That
sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
And another piece that I wanted to kind of emphasize or bring back up is the engagement of the speaker. Sorry, the ability of the speaker to engage the audience is, I think, just as important. Maybe a little bit less important, but it's pretty important. Relative to the other considerations, like the information they're actually presenting, because there's people who know a lot, but they're not, people just, their eyes will glaze over as soon as they start talking, because they're not conveying information in a way that the general public wants to digest it. So making sure that the people we have on the panel are also keeping people interested.
Yeah.
But so then that means we really need to know how well the speakers can convey information.
Yeah, and I think we'll, in the past meeting, we've kind of had all of our potential speakers either come to a meeting or they're vetted by members of EPAC as being good presenters because they've heard them present before. So we can do something similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wasn't, I guess, I didn't have expectations necessarily about the date for the next conversation. For some reason, I was thinking it was a lot sooner than the summer or after the summer. But given that potential timeframe, you know, we don't really have to have anything in place right now. Do we want to set a potential date? Not necessarily in stone, but just to kind of keep us on a timeline and we can kind of move it as needed? Or do we feel like we can just kind of move on and revisit this at the next meeting?
I would go for April as a good date. I mean, that gives us plenty of time, and you know, I don't think we should push it out until we've actually, you know, started working with people first and seeing, you know, what kind of response we get. Because you know, you might be surprised sometimes at how many people, you know, you get a good response from everyone, from every particular, you know, I'm trying to think of, you know, engagement, whatever their particular engagement in the process is, whether it's a farmer, whether it's someone from, you know, from educational research, or, you know, whether it's government, you know, I don't think we're going to have a problem with that. It's just a matter of getting those people and talking to them, maybe, you know, have them come to it, have a couple of them come to a meeting, you know, if we don't know, or if we talk to them and we're comfortable with what they, you know, with their presentability, so to speak, then, you know, we can skip that stage. But a lot of times having them come and talk to them in a meeting helps us, because it gives us other ideas. It gives us, you know, what questions we want to ask, you know, things we want to get together to keep the, you know, the presentation moving forward, to move the conversation forward. But yeah, April, you know, sometime in April, mid-April, probably be a good time.
Okay. How's everybody feel about that time frame as a tentative date? Okay, so we'll say aim for April, mid-April as our next community conversation. And then if we wanted to get information out, like to the, you know, Gainesville Sun or other places in time for enough people to see it, we'd probably want, you know, everything kind of put together enough to do that by the end of March. In that case,
much earlier than that, yeah, I'd say even
or earlier than that.
middle of March at the latest. That gives you a whole month to get that information out there. People that put it on their calendars and, you know, and reserve that, you know, the day for the meeting.
Okay, so then that gives us, if we want to have kind of everything in place in terms of what we're talking about and generally who the speakers are going to be and all of that by mid-March, that gives us 2 more meetings to kind of nail all of that in place. Do we want to go ahead, Bettina?
Well, so I was also thinking about how many more meetings we would have to get ready for this. 2 more meetings seems to be pretty not enough for me, unless you want to have subcommittee meetings again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also I have another question. How many community conversations are we thinking of having in 2021? How many? 2, 3?
I mean, we could, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we could aim for, you know, having, you know, quarterly ones. We could aim for 3. We could, you know, I feel like at this stage, we can kind of make a plan and then kind of see what that looks like in terms of the amount of preparation and work we'll have to do, and see if that sounds realistic. Did anybody have any number in mind for the number of meetings this year?
Well, I do have a follow-up question. It seems like, you know, getting ready for these community conversations is quite involved, because I know you guys had a lot of subcommittee meetings, right? Once a week, I think, to get ready. I unfortunately was not able to participate in those. So I just wonder, are there any other important things we are supposed to do as EPAC? If we, you know, if we put all our focus in these community conversations, are we neglecting other areas?
I mean, I think in terms of anything outside of our scheduled meetings, there's nothing else that we typically do in terms of outreach except for the community conversations. Is that right, David? Or are there other projects that have been done in the past.
No, actually, I mean, I've seen this this committee go for months and for actually years and not do anything, you know, that you know, maybe write a report, you know, for the Board of County Commissioners or something. So that's why we started doing these meetings. That and the fact that that's what, you know, is what we were commissioned to do. One of the things we were commissioned to do was to have these, to communicate, you know, to form this mechanism for communicating between the Board of County Commissioners and, you know, the citizens of Alachua County, and then to, you know, get feedback back. That's why we also talked about, you know, devising this year a technique for getting better response and so that we can pass that back to the Board of County Commissioners.
So, I don't know how to raise my hand electronically. So for example, you know, like the zero waste presentation that Gus gave, and the Kessler report that he sent, it has a lot of material to discuss. And they, like Gus, I just want to say the Alachua County Environmental Protection Committee, I think they would appreciate feedback on that. You know, I think there are other areas we can also be active in. I'm just trying to figure out how to best divide our time and resources.
Sure.
Great. By the way, I think that three is a good number. I think 3 is a conservative number. You know, I don't think we've hit 3 in any year but the very first year, and we did that all, you know, in 3 months. You know, we had 2 months preparation for the first one, I think, and then we did it in 3 months. And I think that was actually, we spent way too long preparing on that. It doesn't take 3 months to put a community conversation together. And I think also Bettina's right. You know, there are other things we can do. We get sent things specifically, you know, from the Board of County Commissioners, you know, that they would like to have our, you know, our registering our opinion on, and give them, you know, give them our feedback on. You know, say, well, we looked at this and here's the areas we've looked at. And, you know, that's what we've been doing. That's what we did with the trees last year. That's what we did with, you know, land development code and all that. I mean, that's, you know, all these different areas, things that the commission, bless their soul, has to work with. So I have 2 of those 3 in mind. One of them would be on food waste, which we haven't yet really got someone, you know, that's a master in that field. And then this, you know, as well. So, and yes, Bettina, we do, when it gets down to the you know, the month or 2 before the actual date, we're going to have the you know, the community conversation. We do tend to have as many meetings as we need to iron out any details and make sure we're all, you know, good to go, like a couple of weeks in advance at least.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think one thing that we should base the number of, or motivate us to determine the number of community conversations we have in a year is by generating a bunch of different topics and then putting them into hierarchies of urgency, things that we really feel the community, the county needs to address with speed. And that can perhaps push us to sort and optimize how often and what we want to deal with. Does it make any sense?
Yes, and so I like that a lot, George, and I just want to throw out there we should have a community conversation on zero waste, because that's a goal that Alachua County has, right? And if you guys read the Kessler report, I don't know if any of you really read it, but I did. And I think there is a lot of information in there that really needs to be digested, and to make meaningful recommendations, that takes a lot of time, in my opinion, because, you know, I'm not well read on this topic. And so I think a community conversation on zero waste would be great. After this one that we have planned with the farmers on climate change.
Bettina, you are aware that we you know, when we did the forum on a conversation on plastic, single-use plastic, et cetera, that was, you know, we went through a lot, did a lot of discussions on, you know, the zero waste plan at that time. And the county and the city do have a longer term range, you know, longer term plan or dealing with zero waste. And maybe I agree, that's something we can look at. Maybe we need to get another report, or a report now where an update, where are they at on their, the zero waste plan in the county.
Mhm.
This is Mark, just following up on that. I've talked to Gus here recently, and he's willing to give updates on the zero waste plan to EPAC in any monthly meeting. So he just let me know when I can get in touch with him. But he asked me, he didn't have anything new for tonight. He didn't have anything new, but he may have something in the near future. But yes, any presentations that EPAC wants to use for the community conversation, he'd be more than willing to assist with that.
Cool. With respect to that, Mark, I know the zero waste plan is right now in the process of getting stakeholder feedback, and then I don't remember the list of where it goes. So it gets stakeholder feedback, and then it's brought to the Board of County Commissioners, and then a final version is created. Is that the timeline?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. So yeah, I think we might want to have him back before he goes in front of the county commission, if we have any kind of final suggestions for that, or do we want to wait until the final version is in place?
I'll touch base with him in terms of the schedule for that. So yes, I mean, that way I can let the committee know, what kind of timeline you have to provide him feedback if that's what y'all so choose.
Okay, sounds good.
Nisha, have we had any feedback from the commission with 2 new commissioners? There might be some ideas that they have that they want to bring to the table. Those two brand new people. Have we had, Mark? Have we had any interactions with the commission relative to priorities that we ought to consider as a committee?
That's a good question, George. Right now, they're both in a learning curve situation. In fact, myself and a couple other staff will be giving individual presentations to both commissioners on the 19th on the role and responsibility of EPD. And not that both of them have experience, especially Mary with her professional. So they have, but they don't know, not necessarily all the different programs that EPD is involved in. So yes, all the departments are giving individual run through to both commissioners to kind of get them up to speed. So they do have a rather full plate of issues to address just to get up to speed, but they have not provided any. So they really haven't had time to provide any input on any direction on what they like to see efforts towards.
Well, kind of where I was going with that was, being with that said, I can support moving ahead with something, community conversation that addresses agriculture in sort of a broad sense. I think that would be of use and interesting to Alachua County, particularly Gainesville residents, if you can get them interested in coming to a community conversation that's about agriculture. So we'd want to make it, market it and sell it, as something that everybody really needs to learn about. I'm sure that very few people in Alachua County and Gainesville proper understand the agriculture issue, except for what they probably have a general sense is negative. But so I think that there's a lot of learning that the average citizen can do to hear from an organization like the partnership and what the growers and the folks associated with the partnership are trying to do to help agriculture accomplish its goals, its responsibilities towards the BMAT. So I think moving ahead on something with agriculture, I'm still a little bit trying to sort out in my mind exactly how that might look as a program. But in the meantime, doing that I think is very good. And I just suspect that probably by April or May or something, we're gonna hear some things from the commission as far as projects. And we've also got a couple of them that we've already talked about, the zero waste and so forth, that can be sort of in our pocket, you know, moving forward after doing something on agriculture.
Well, I'd have to agree, George. I think it's a niche that obviously it deserves being presented to the public, and like you said, the general public, and particularly in Gainesville, let's say, in the more metropolitan areas, are not as in tune with the role of agriculture in relation to you know, particularly in relation to climate change. And I think I appreciate Kelly giving a presentation this evening, kind of, you know, earmarks the improvements. I mean, that just the example that she gave, it's astounding the amount of, you know, reduction in nitrogen and water use just from that one technique, you know, for corn. So I think, you know, that kind of, you know, presentations is definitely a noteworthy and is a good, you know, avenue if the committee wishes to continue to utilize that. But like I said, whether that's in zero waste, there's plenty of spectrum in the climate change discussion, that in terms of forum opportunities that EPAC could sponsor. So I think it's a win-win scenario.
Yeah, George, by the way, are you going to willing to actually be the chair of an agricultural community conversation? I mean, is that something you can?
George, I think he's talking to you.
No, I'm talking to you, George. Professor. Nice try.
Let me think about that one for a while. I've already done one. I've gotten spanked once.
Oh, okay.
Bruce, I think Bruce has a question.
Yes. I wonder if for a future conversation, if instead of zero waste, which is a huge, huge thing, if we would do well with the community conversation, pulling out one part of it, say, composting, community composting, individual composting, the different ways and so forth. I think that's something that we could get a lot of information to people, and it might be better than just trying to do the whole zero waste.
Mm-hmm. Like that, yes.
And I like George's observation about kind of what's going on, you know, in the county, and kind of coordinating that with what our community conversations are about. So, yes. For example, I mean, this zero waste plan, you know, once that becomes finalized and there are, you know, actual recommendations and things in there, you know, it would make sense to do a conversation, you know, related to that, whether it's the broad issue or whether it's just, you know, whatever the composting component is. It would make sense to kind of coordinate so that we're presenting a conversation when it seems relevant to the community to present it.
Yes.
By the way, I'd like to add, you know, we can always invite, you know, commissioners to come to the meeting too. I mean, specifically, you know, I think we should probably just select the individual commissioner we want to have to come to a meeting and go, you know, on that, because obviously they can't be two of them at the same meeting. But that, and the other point I wanted to make is, remember that the commissioners do from time to time, they have a regular process of, you know, when they're looking at passing, you know, an ordinance, that they say, well, who relevant to this ordinance, and one of our many committees, you know, needs to look at it, and they'll say, oh, this committee and this committee can look at this, and this committee and this committee. So you know, they're sending us stuff all the time, and it's not too hard to, you know, that tells us what they want. And I'm sure Ken, somewhere down the road this year, as he gets going as the new chair, will, you know, be doing that same thing.
Yep.
So, so agriculture sounds like what we've more or less settled on for the first one, and then potentially zero waste, or some subsection or subtopic related to zero waste for future conversation. Also, just
Food waste.
the food waste is one. And then, you know, an observation about the last conversation. I think after that last conversation happened, based on what we learned from that conversation, that's what motivated this whole moving into the direction of agriculture. So there might be something that, you know, organically kind of, you know, after the next conversation, we feel like, oh, you know, we should probably do something related to whatever, you know, just based on the feedback and the things that we learned from the next conversation. So we might want to, you know, have something in mind, but also keep it, you know, keep an open mind to whatever, you know, we learned from the next conversation.
Yes.
Good point. Good point. Remain flexible so we can adapt to whatever, you know, is necessary. So
Yeah. So, and is there anybody that we want to maybe invite to the next meeting that could be a potential candidate for the panel, or just might shed some light on who to use for our panel?
Dr. Barrett.
Dr.
Yeah, I also was thinking of him, Dr. Barrett.
Okay.
Just keep in mind, you know, if our meeting is in early February and we're talking about March, we might still have some time to flesh out something with Charles in February. But I guess what I'm thinking is we might want to have some balls rolling before, you know, before whatever the first meeting is in February. I'm just throwing that out. I know that these things do take several subcommittee meetings to finally flesh them out. And also, while we were talking about this a while ago, realize that April is a pretty busy time for the farmers that we're talking about and for the researchers. So we probably ought to feel some people out or have some ideas, maybe kick that around in the next couple of weeks through Mark, so that we have a target of 2 or 3 or 4 people that we can at least ask and say, hey, you know, how's your schedule in April? Here's what we're thinking. And some of them that are going to know they're going to be very busy will, you know, more than likely say, you know, I can't commit now. So we just have to, I'm just throwing that out. We have to just be aware of that when we're talking about agriculture.
Or do you know April compared to May compared to June, are those all busy, or is April particularly a busy month?
April's particularly busy because and even February, really. I mean, as soon as it warms up, I know that we always, these kinds of projects that we're talking about here, this big 1.8 million one, when I was doing it, we got started in January and February starting to install equipment in these fields, because the farmers are already getting ready for planting and so forth. So by the time April rolls around, things are going pretty hard. Now, research usually drags a little bit behind what the farmers are doing, because a lot of projects are a little more detailed and take more time to install. So I'm betting that people will probably be pretty busy in March and April, May even as well. But I guess all I'm saying right now, Nisha, is that we probably ought to have some ideas fleshed out about the target, the sort of the take-home message, and you know, that we want from the agriculture community conversation, and that will, at least as far as I'm concerned, that will speak to who we might want to, you know, to bring in. And we might even go a little bit weird and say, okay, we got 3 names, and if they agree to meet with us in our next meeting in February, and as a group, sort of flesh out what the community conversation would be in April. So, you know, Kelly could probably help us find a grower that would be willing to be part of a panel. and maybe Charles and maybe somebody else from the Water Management District, or however we play it out, we might look at our meeting in February as bringing them into a Zoom meeting with us and just kick around, what we want to do. It's a little bit of an odd way to do it, but it might save some time.
So you're thinking basically of fast tracking it.
Yeah, well, I'm going back to David's request of me. I'm trying to defend myself.
He doesn't want subcommittee meetings. He's like, let's just put everybody in the main meeting.
I surely don't mind helping as much as possible. You all know that, but so I'm just thinking ahead, that because of all the logistics with trying to get people out of the field to participate in a community conversation, that we might want to kind of take a different approach to this. I know we were kind of down to the last minute on the last one with some of these folks.
I do like that idea. I mean, I think, having one person come to the next meeting, for example, is going to be, if we have them inform us about what the community conversation should be about, it might be biased towards whatever they're doing, right? But if we have all three, and we kind of try to sort it out with three different voices, then we get something that's kind of, we know that it appeals to all three of those voices.
Yeah.
Can I make a recommendation then, Nisha?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it sounds like what we need to do is for George or someone, one of the Georges, the one we've been talking most with lately.
I thought you were talking about George P.
But if he contact these individuals, as with and working with Kelly, and then we could in 2 weeks have just a touch bases meeting, a workshop that we just come together, find out where we're at on. Do we have people coming? Yes, I've been invited, and so they're all available. Or, well, this person, that person available, but that person I talked to is not. We'll have an idea of where we're at, and we can then come up with some other ideas in terms of what we want to discuss with them and what we're looking for. Maybe what you've already discovered from talking to them, George.
So I want to follow up also on George's comments, George Hochmuth, that hopefully we could identify 3 speakers and invite them to our February EPAC meeting. Like Kelly could get a farmer for us, and then we could have Charles Barrett. And I'm suggesting we get somebody from ACT, because they also work with the Swanee River Partnership. I think ACT would be excellent.
I like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let me throw out another little twist here. While Kelly chose to stay with us, and Kelly, you're going to healthily pay for that decision. After hearing our discussion, Kelly, and where I think I'm interpreting what we're trying to get at with this community conversation is to educate the general citizenry about the programs that are ongoing with agriculture, because I'm going to assume that people have heard, oh, well, agriculture, that's a problem, and farmers need to do a better job. And so, so this program would address that question. And so, I mean, off the top of your head, what do you think? You work with you got a large assemblage of partners with the partnership. How would you set this up?
So I think it's going to be kind of difficult to get a farmer without knowing what he or she's getting into first, because I think a lot of times they walk into situations and they end up being, they end up not having a great time. So I think I'm trying to think of who we could even potentially bring in. That's why a lot of times that there's other agencies that end up doing the speaking for some farmers. you could, if you wanted to get in 3 different sources, I think ACT is really great. They're actually trying to work with farmers right now. They've been buying conservation land for farmers. And so they've had to kind of learn exactly how to talk and discuss things. And so I think they would be a really great option to bring in. And then the other one is that if you wanted to have a fully on the agriculture side, have somebody from Florida Farm Bureau come in and talk. And so I don't know if maybe they have, because they have CARES recipients, and those are people that they've received awards for their stewardship, environmental stewardship. And so there's a possibility that they may have somebody that is willing to be forefront and kind of be more of in a leadership role of taking on some more questions.
I actually need to call Tom Kay at ACT for something else. So tomorrow I'll call him and talk to him about their role in the conservation easement, activity and so I'm sure they'll be glad to give Tom will give a presentation. So.
Thank you. And so Kelly, you're suggesting maybe instead of a farmer, somebody from the Farm Bureau would be a representative with a
more
similar.
More on the advocacy side. And there's a possibility that, and I can reach out to somebody and ask him. Charles Shin is actually our Florida Farm Bureau member, or person that's on our board. He works for Florida Farm Bureau, and so I can actually reach out to him, and maybe he knows of somebody that that wouldn't mind speaking, but he also would be a really great person to be able to talk.
Who are you talking about here, Kelly?
Charles Shin.
Yeah, I know Charles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Charles is a great guy. I've talked with him a number of times when he's come to various meetings we've both been at and so on. And he and I carried on a fairly long email conversation at one point in time, so I kind of know what his behind the scenes thinking on it. And I've also been been the victim to some of his attacks because his job is basically protecting agriculture and anything that looks like it might be against it. But I have no problem with him being
Yeah, and he may have more of a suggestion of somebody that would come on, but I do think that a lot of times that, and just being frank, that that a lot of times farmers are asked to be part of things, and then it ends up being a firing squad situation and not really a discussion.
Yeah.
And so,
what I'll do,
not that you guys would do that at all. I'm just saying that that's their perception coming into a lot of things a lot of times.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is this: Nisha, I'll volunteer to call Charles and see if we can't get him to actually make a recommendation, of someone, because we want to have a farmer here directly. We don't want to have just someone who speaks for farmers. Okay, we really want someone who's out there, having to, to fight the battles, that they fight every day. And but Charles can give us someone who isn't going to, fall apart if someone, asks him the wrong question, that if he gets a tough question. And at the same time, understand, Kelly, when we have our community conversations, we insulate our panelists, very, very well, I think, from idiots in the audience who are going to cause trouble, or just out there and they don't like farmers or some other, part of the community, because we're about making solutions here, not about causing,
Yeah, and I think that if they know that coming in, it's a little bit different. But I just know I have heard of, not your group, but of I heard like a few years ago, they brought a group onto a farm and it ended up not being very nice. but so I do think that Charles would be a good one. Charles Barrett would be really great as well. He's on the research side of things. He also has a $7 million project that's going on that's funded by FDACS out at the research farm that is looking exactly at what is actually being leached through the soil through fertilizers. And so he's a good, really all the Charleses I know that are involved in any aspect are really great. So.
Mm-hmm. All
we
right.
can have 4 Charles on the panel. That would be cool. This question's for Charles, please.
Yeah, I have a lot of Charleses and a lot of Bobs on my panel because I have Bob Palmer. But yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that sounds like we have a potential
Yeah.
tree, right? So
Yes.
Mark is going to reach out to Tom with ACT, and then we'll have somebody reach out to Dr. Barrett. I don't know who, if Kelly or George, or who would be the best person to do that.
Either one. I don't mind passing along the information to him to let him know that you guys, or I can include you, George, as well on that email.
Okay.
You said he was in Brazil.
Yeah.
Do you know when he's due back?
He's due back next week,
Okay.
I believe. I'm
And
actually
then-
I'm actually at his house right now, with his cat. I'm cat sitting right now. So my last day is next Tuesday. So
Aw. Yeah, I thought I heard maybe like a little slinky, or it was
Yeah.
playing with something. Yeah.
yeah, he was just dead asleep, and so I didn't just close the door, and then he woke up in the middle of the presentation. So it was great.
And then
Either way, Kelly, if you wanted to mention to him, or I can, I don't know if I'll call him next week if he's just getting back in town,
Yeah.
but maybe email him. I guess the question for him is, and I can probably spell some things out for him. And if you just give him a heads up, I'll put on my calendar to call him towards the end of next week.
Okay.
Or call him or email him and just sort of feel him out if he's willing to join a conversation. When's our February meeting? It's not important, but it's the first Tuesday of
First Tuesday, yes.
February. So I can follow up if you'll give him a heads up, Kelly. I'll follow up with him and see if he's willing to even be part of this.
It's on the 2nd.
Second, okay. Thanks, David.
okay, that sounds good. And then David, you'll get in touch with Charles Shin and see if you can find a farmer that is willing to brave the conversation. And
They'll enjoy it. We're not going to give someone a hard time. They'll have a good time.
yeah.
We're not going to hold anybody's feet to the fire. We want to find out what they have to say on the subject. They're going to hear the other side, the point of view. I mean, the point of view, that there's this tremendous amount of, of nitrogen, obviously in our water that needs to, be stopped. But, they're aware of that, so this isn't anything, it shouldn't be any new to them. We're certainly not blaming them, for every last drop of fertilizer that's gotten into Florida water at the beginning of time. Recognize that's something that we've got to work with them on, and that's why they're there to tell us what we can do, to help them, and for us to tell them, what we want to. I mean, it's kind of this. That's what the conversation is about, So yeah, there won't be a problem with that. Charles knows basically enough. He's been to at least half, of our conversations so far, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Also, just throwing this out, I know Kelly, you mentioned it's really hard to get farmers to want to come to something like this, or much less or be on the panel. But somebody who you're potentially vetting for this $8 million project, or somebody who has been involved in a project with you, where you've already had this kind of conversation about motivating, why you're trying to do this, management practice, and going through all of the reservations about cost, and they might be kind of poised to speak in a way that they feel like they're already part of working on this, and they've had to deal with some of these issues around changing my entire practice, and is this going to actually keep my family fed, and on all of these things. They've already kind of been through this mentally themselves, and I don't know if any of those people would be more willing.
Yeah, I can definitely, that's one of the things is that I'll have to email Charles and talk to him about that, because I know that we're not fully, I know that they've started conversations with farmers of who's going to be in this first year. But I also know that we haven't, because of holidays and everything, we haven't been able to all meet together to discuss further of exactly who it's going to be. I know a few farmers know that it may be happening. So, but I can definitely reach out to him. That'll be part of my reaching out to Charles Barrett about things.
Awesome. And I like David's idea about maybe following up in a couple of weeks, having maybe a subcommittee meeting. Is that what you had in mind? Something like that, David, where we all just kind of touch base?
Yeah, and it could be a half-an-hour meeting if that's all we have to say. They never are, but I mean, you know, we can keep them short. That's for sure. We can make a maximum of an hour on it, and then we're done in a half an hour.
Yeah.
Let's shock ourselves. Make it a half an hour, David.
Yeah, I mean, and that, I think ultimately it would be more efficient because we do have a lot of balls in the air right now and unknowns in terms of who's actually willing to present and all of that stuff. So maybe having something just to keep us on track and updated in a couple weeks makes sense. Is that something we can schedule, Mark?
Yeah, I just need a 2 weeks notice. Week and a half.
It shouldn't be on a Tuesday though.
It's not my call. That's downtown. They are so wanting, you know, because we're not meeting in person, they're really not happy. And, but they are willing to continue the workshop format. It just, the more notice I can give them, the better.
Yeah,
So
I'm just saying 2 weeks.
they require a minimum of a week. I got chewed out big time because that didn't happen one time. And 2 weeks is preferable.
That was my fault. But
Just for subcommittee. Now, having said that, you can just send me information and I can compile it and just, you know, and pass it out to all the staff as far as who you're lining up and who's, you know, willing to speak, and, you know, just stay up to date on that. And then we can still meet in a couple of weeks if you like. I would just need to make.
I think we should meet. And by the way, I'm just saying we can't meet on the exact two weeks from now on that Tuesday, because that would be, I think, potentially a week that the new water committee, their climate change committee is CCAC.
I'd have to check their schedule, but they're trying to schedule all theirs on Thursday. So,
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, if you're lining up people that, then we can kind of like flesh out from there, meet and discuss particular topics. But I think any potential presenters who may already have a PowerPoint presentation in the can that they can pull from would be good. But if they don't, you know, that may be more of a problem for some than others. But yeah, I think, but if you want to meet in 2 weeks, just let me know. I can put in a notice tomorrow. And
I say yes to that, but Anisha, I want to make you aware, we also have one last subject to go, and we've only got 15 minutes or so left in the meeting.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
So is that okay with everybody? Scheduling something a couple weeks out, and then we'll just kind of, you know, see where we're at in terms of getting our speakers lined up.
Sure.
Yeah, it sounds okay to me.
Okay. Any date in particular? You said Tuesday was no good, David, or was that?
Well, no, Mark knows now. It's just we don't want to have it on the same night that the climate change committee is. That way we can, you know.
Sure.
Thursday.
Yeah.
The climate change is Thursday.
Yeah, that's what he said.
So maybe the 19th or the 20th, or does anyone have a preference?
Those days.
That's Tuesday, the 19th, and Wednesday, the 20th.
I prefer 20th. I know that I cannot meet on the 19th.
Okay.
all right, I'll put in a notice for the 20th at 6 o'clock, or you want to do earlier, or?
That works for me. Anybody else have a preference there?
Just the 20th, is that what we're talking about then?
Yeah, 20th at 6.
20th at 6 works for me, but Nisha.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So yeah, let's go with that.
Any information you want us to provide between now and then, I can pass out to the members.
Perfect. All right, sounds good. So anybody who is interested in attending that subcommittee meeting, and then we'll go from there. So let's go ahead and move on to David. Why don't you get us started with the next.
Okay.
subject.
I assume that most people, that are on the committee now are familiar with what Safe Board tried to do last year. And, in the, we didn't make it through Mark or somebody, I think it has to mute. So
No, I'm not. What was that, David?
I'm saying, I think someone has to mute because there's a lot of feedback are coming through on the channel here, bleed through.
Not me.
Okay, maybe it's Bettina, then she's the only other one that's not.
No.
No? Okay, well, anyway, it's really hard. You get all that stuff coming through like that. So what I've done, if everyone knows also that, the purpose of Safe Board was to help clean our water up. And by, having the rights of nature law. And that, of course, was preempted by the state, as they like to do. And so what we've done is we've gone back and rewritten, and I spent, I don't know, I had like 3 or 4 rewrites of this ordinance to come up with what we finally came up with. And hopefully everyone got a copy of it sent to them. And it's the Alachua County Right to Clean Water Ordinance. I've already submitted this to the county. Started getting responses from the commissioners by email, and they are going to be considering it shortly. So I wanted to give everyone a chance to see what it was. And basically the important parts of it are, without even going into the details on it, but the important parts are that very much like Safe Board, it does, it has a provision in it that grants to every citizen in Alachua County legal standing, so that that we can go in to court in Alachua County and we can file if we're aware of, say, next door neighbor or somebody we're aware of is polluting a body of water, and which they shouldn't be, and the county's chosen perhaps not to follow up on it. A citizen can follow up on it. There's nothing to stop us from doing that. Right now there is. Citizens can't do a lot of things because of this. You go into court, and the first thing that happens is the attorney on the other side says, "Well, Your Honor, they do not have standing in this. They don't either, they're not losing money because they live on the river, or this body of water is somehow damaged, affects them. There's no damages they can show. So we don't think they have standing. And a lot of times, right then and there, the court will say, "Yep, they don't have standing. Dismissed." And that's it. So this gets around that. Standing, this whole idea of standing is something that destroys people's ability to defend our environment and protect our environment in any way. So this is just one way of accomplishing that. What it does differently is it says, instead of granting a right to natural entities, to ecosystems, it simply says grants the right to clean water for the citizens of Alachua County. Now, I don't know how you all think about this, but I looked it up, and I couldn't find anywhere in federal or in state law where citizens are granted rights to clean water. They grant rights regularly to pollute water to industries that are polluting, but they don't grant any kind of right to clean water to anybody else, to citizens. So this was meant to kind of fill that that particular that niche or that hole in the law that says citizens have a right. Now, I provided also a set of facts, FAQ, frequently asked questions, for this, because there's all these thoughts, and I think the misconceptions people have about right to nature law in general, and that's what the FAQ is meant to deal with. But one of the questions, is, well, isn't this going to create all these situations where people are suing their neighbors and stuff like that? Well, number one, no, because the law is not to allow suing of individuals. It has to be a corporation or a government to be sued. under the, and that's just simply because, it's to keep the legal action to people who are most likely doing the most damage. So if a government is saying, yeah, we can just, we're going to authorize someone to do all this polluting in this particular area, they can just go dump it in the water there, or they can do it, they can dump it in a place that's going to get into the water. We can now go and we can fight against that. We don't have to wait for, we don't have to go to FDEP or someone else to say this isn't right, and then have them reject it in the end after 4 months worth of meetings or 2 years worth of meetings. And that's an important part of, of how we can move forward with it. But that astonished me when I found out we didn't have a right to clean water. So this grants on it from the county's part, which they are legally entitled to do. They can grant this right, and it's meant to be, for local right only. And we couldn't go sue someone in the next state over, but we can sue someone in Alachua County, if they're polluting and no one else is doing anything about it, then, and we think we have a case. Because here's the thing: if we go in and we say we've got the right to clean water, they have a right to something. Those rights are going to be adjudicated. There's going to be a judge there, and he's going to say, well, what's the fair amount? What is the legal amount of pollutions allowed here that's not destroying the water, and what isn't? If they're over that limit, right now, a lot of times nothing's done anyway. But this way, we've got a chance at least to present the case and say, this is just too much pollution to have to handle on our water. So that's the purpose of the ordinance. There's a secondary purpose to it, and that is that coming in the next few years is going to be a rights of nature amendment to the Constitution, Florida Constitution. And when that comes by, people need to understand how these laws are meant to work. They're not meant to work outside of the current framework. They're meant to work within the current framework of law. It's adding a new aspect to it, but right now corporations are the ones that because they pretty much have the ear of our legislature. They get everything preempted that it's not suitable for them, it's not good for them, and they have all the rights in the world, but we have none. As citizens, we have none. So this gives us the rights to stand up to now as a community. Someone wanted to come into Alachua County and they wanted to put a deep well here and dump all of their perhaps it was fracking from someplace else. They fracking fluids they brought in. They want to pump them in the ground in Alachua County. We can't do anything about it if they've got a permit to do that. If the state's giving them a permit to put their fracking fluids here, we can't stop them. Okay, this would at least give us the ability to take them to court and to stop it. Okay, so it's things like that. This is where it can be extremely useful. So if anyone has any questions about it that that isn't covered by any of the frequently asked questions part of that, I'd be happy to answer those.
David, I have a question. So if there are corporations are given the right to pollute water, you said there are laws like that, right? The corporations have the right to pollute water.
Corporations can get permits, and the permits grants them the right to pollute.
Yes. So then doesn't that imply that our natural state is to have clean water?
Of course.
Yeah. So.
Of course. And the idea is while we'd like to say that no pollution should be done. Right now, a little bit of pollution is being done over and over and over and over again. It's what what they call the destruction by 1,000 cuts, but there's nothing to stop that. All I'm saying is it's meant to be kept at a slow enough level that it's not making our water so bad that we can't drink it. Well, you can't even stand near some of our water bodies in Florida right now because of all there's so much fertilizer and nitrogen from our septic systems have gotten into our water bodies that you've got all these algae blooms, and the algae blooms are sometimes toxic. So you can't even stand next to the water. You wouldn't want to drink that water. So the idea is that there has to be some kind of a balance to it. The balance is that people should have the right to clean water, and therefore we would at least have a voice to speak up to fight against those that are granted rights to pollute. As simple as that. Otherwise, they'll have the right to pollute until we're all dead. And if you think regulation is going to fix the problem, well, good luck. What's it been doing so far? It's not fixing it. It's not fixing the problem. It's not dealing with it. Our water's getting worse, even as they're working their best and saying it's getting better. It's not getting better. It's getting worse.
David, I know this is an aside, but is there anything equivalent regarding air, clean air?
No, you know, it would be nice to have that included, especially when, you know, you look at what, you know, output from the cement plant sometimes, but you know, that's definitely a more federal issue. And what we're looking for here to solve is home rule. But
Yeah.
we've been preempted in Alachua County from doing anything against air as of like
That's right.
when we were fighting the cement plant, there
Yeah,
was
the Clean Air Ordinance, yeah.
and it was almost like they
Nick.
singled Alachua County out as saying, okay, if you're living in Alachua County, you can't do anything about clean air, you know, so. No, it doesn't do anything about that. It is for clean water. It's right to clean water. You know, you're right. I thought that same thing when we went to, you know, put together, and it, you know, it should have been right to clean water and clean air. But, you know, that's one battle right now that we're fighting it one at a time, at least.
Sure.
So, and the whole purpose of this is so that citizens can sue corporations or the government if they do not do anything about water pollution. That's the purpose of this ordinance.
It's if someone pollutes and they're past the legal limit of pollution, it's going to have to be, you know, there's laws that are set that are, you know, we're not going to be able to fight against that. But a lot of times the state doesn't choose to prosecute people for it. A lot of times the county won't be able to. They won't choose. The state doesn't. The county's not going to want to. This gives us as citizens the right to, you know, to sue that polluter, be it a government or a corporation. Whereas right now we do not have that right. And they can go and they can pollute to their heart's content and be over the limits which they're supposed to be, you know, allowed to, you know, to pollute a given water body, which let's face it, our water bodies are past that limit. At least half of them are already considered impaired. So when it comes down to it, those water bodies should not be allowed to pollute those at all. And that's just not the case. Yeah, Bruce.
David, have you heard anything from the city legal department since you submitted this? Of the county
No, I
legal
haven't.
department?
I had a conversation. I sat down with Colin, I forget his last name, and also Sylvia Torres. Sylvia's the county attorney, Alachua County attorney, and we discussed it. Had a very good conversation over it, and you know, this is when we went through Safe War, but you know, this is. So I know her points of view on all these individual issues from the Right to Clean Water Ordinance. They're the same. They're essentially the same issues, but they're on the now it's being granted as a right to humans as opposed to being a right to nature. So people, for whatever reason, people were afraid that that was, you know, wrong. So, and the arguments against it that were the strongest were, you know, saying, well, humans shouldn't ever have to be subservient to nature or animals or, you know, or forests or things like that. Yeah, I think they're wrong, but that's, you know, that was their approach.
Well, I think this is a good topic for EPAC because that's what we're charged with. We're charged with the environmental problems, and I wouldn't mind EPAC sending a letter to the county commission backing this ordinance.
We'd have to meet in person to do that, by the way.
Have to meet in person to do that.
Right.
But we wouldn't have to meet for long. Okay, if that was the case.
Yeah.
Bruce, I like your suggestion, and David, I like your ordinance. I just don't know if, you know, all the, whatever you wrote in that ordinance, if that is legally correct. So I don't know, but I like the idea of the ordinance.
I wrote it in coordination with an attorney. Okay, I started with, I said, give me the things that are, you know, templated that I need to have, you know, from a legal standpoint, and then let me, you know, make an Alachua County ordinance of that. And then I passed it back to him and he said, okay, fix this, fix that, change that. And then I took that, did those things, made last minute changes I wanted to see, and that was it. So we finished this on Christmas Day. And I was amazed because, you know, having an attorney who's, you know, out in the West Coast, and he's responding, you know, and sending me information, you know, and saying, yeah, you need to change this, you need to change that, you know, you can't have that way, that sort of thing. So it's great person to work with.
And there are, I think, right, there's similar movements all over the country. So there are like precedents in terms of like what to, you know, write within the scope of the ordinance and everything.
Yeah, this is a legal document. This is a legal
Yeah.
ordinance. It's not been preempted. It's not. I think it would be a bad mistake if the legislature turned around and decided, well, no, we don't think that anyone should be, citizens have a right to clean water. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that would be really bad PR for them. They did it for nature, but that they can probably get away with that. And I don't think they're going to get away with saying you don't have a right to clean water. We're only going to let corporations pollute. We're not going to let you have clean water. I don't think that would work. And there's things we can and can't do within this. By the way, it wouldn't apply against agriculture because agriculture is preempted already from the state level, and it was originally granted by the federal government. It's not, the state would have to then take ownership of that from the Clean Water Act, essentially take ownership of that, and then it would be a state issue. Right now, it's not a state issue, so this wouldn't be applied. This is really kind of a home rule type of thing, and but it's legal. I'm saying granting right to people is for having clean water is a legal thing to do. Okay, it's not something that is even questionable or falls out. And there are a number of communities that have already passed similar ordinances.
The wording is great. It's fantastic. It's like putting a king in check,
This is like deja vu all over again, David. Back in the 1960s, when I was in Rhode Island doing work, we had this problem in the pollution of Narragansett Bay, where it was against the law to pollute the bay, but you could obtain a permit to pollute it, and it was quite a fight to try to get some of these things stopped, but it worked. It took quite a few years. There's this fish in downtown Providence now where they hadn't been since the early part of the 20th century.
Yeah, and the problem was is a lot of times there's no doubt that what the pollution that's being done is illegal. It's above the limit that's even allowed by law, but no one's prosecuting it. And when citizens go to try and prosecute it, they're said, well, you don't have standing, and so it's left as is, and it goes on for years and years and years.
Thank goodness when I took people to court for filling salt marshes, standing never came into account.
No, you're lucky.
Yes, that was back in the innocent 60s.
Yeah, they use that a lot here in Florida, though. I mean, it's everything, it's like one of the first things that, the government, brings up, or it's, the state of Florida, or it's first thing that, they bring up in a court, it's because it's easy. It's an easier procedural thing to get a case thrown out of the court on it. But this is a beautiful ordinance. I mean,
Yes.
if you want to read through it, the tricky bit on this one, by the way, is that it declares that in the whereas statements that, that nature is perceived to have a I forget what the wording there exactly is, but it has a right, to exist, and et cetera, et cetera. That's in the whereas statements. Whereas statements are not a part of an ordinance and therefore cannot be preempted. You're just saying this is what those who wrote the ordinance believe to be true, and here's what the ordinance is what the law was going to be. So it's what's in the law. You can't grant a right to nature in the ordinance portion, but in the whereas portion, you can say, well, we recognize that nature has a right to exist. And I think that's an important part of this. Now, I'll be honest, the reason why we're going we will have a state amendment for this is very simple, is you can't really protect nature if it doesn't have its own right, because corporations have the rights, there's only place, like you pointed out, air. You've got to have the actual entity itself that's being injured has to have the right to be defend itself, or have someone defend on its behalf. But for county stuff, I think this will work great.
David, do you know if this is on the county commission agenda at any point?
I'm pretty sure it will be. It may not yet, because I just sent it, like a matter of days ago. I don't think it's been even a full week yet.
Sure.
We've looked at it, and the BOCC will get to it, but I don't know how soon with everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, county has received it and is reviewing it.
Okay. Because I'm just thinking, if we did want to, have come together briefly, I don't know exactly how that works, but I guess it would be at the next meeting, right? We'd have to get a quorum together to put a letter in support of it. I don't know if that's something we want to move forward with or not.
Let's wait.
Well, wait. I think you want to wait.
Yeah,
Okay.
I do too. I do. Let's wait until they've actually got it on their agenda, because I think we can,
Yeah.
you know, if Mark will tell us or someone will tell us, you know, that we can get to it. It takes, they think they schedule things like 3 weeks out to get on the commission agenda. That gives you plenty of time for us to, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll keep you. There's a lot of issues associated with this, as David indicated, that are not necessarily indicated, you know. So it's a big picture type approach that, let's just say, our legal staff's looking at it hard. So, but we're waiting on, you know, the BOCC to make a decision on when they want to see it. You know, if it's not a priority for them right now with everything else that they have on their plate, and with 2 new board members, it could be a little bit. And with the legislative session kicking in, you know, you have to kind of pick your battles on when you want to fight them. So, you know, with that in mind, I think what David indicated is like, just hold your horses, you know, don't get ahead of it, because there are other issues involved that are not evident in just the verbiage of the ordinance. So,
And for what it's worth, I've had conversations with 4 out of the 5 commissioners about this already, this specific ordinance. They had 3 copies of this, you know, slightly different, but for the most part, it's this ordinance. They knew this ordinance was coming, and you know, I don't think there's going to be, you know, a complete resistance against it, you know, other than the county attorney. But you know, I understand where they're coming from as well.
yeah,
Hold on. Hold on, please. One of the things that everyone should realize is that there was also a much more severe version of this was the actual amended charter for Orange County. And Orange County in November 3rd passed, you know, what would have been similar to SAFE-4, in which it was granted rights of nature and right to clean water. Now, they may strike the right to nature part out of their ordinance, but it'll still have a right to clean water. And the important thing about their passing that ordinance, they passed it with 89% of the electorate voting in favor of it. And I looked at the breakdown of their electorate, and for that to have happened, it had to have been bipartisan. There had to have been 200,000 to 300,000, or 200,000 or so, I think, of those had to come from a combination of Republicans and also non-affiliated you know, voters. So this I think was a very, very popular law. There's some there's reasons to understand that it'll have good support, you know, around, you know, from parties. Simple as that.
Well, I think the difference there is it was voter approved.
Right.
This one is you're asking the BOC to approve it, and
Absolutely, I understand that.
But nobody is doubting the value of clean water. I mean, that's not the issue here. It's the legality aspects of it that the legal staff's concerned about. So, and
I'm just glad you're not on the commission, Mark. Okay, so I'm surprised. You have a lot of negativity towards this that none of the commissioners I talk to seem to have.
Well, they're not going to tell you what their concerns are, David, to be honest. But I mean, we'll just see what they want to do. I mean, it's
personal friends of mine, and they're not going to tell me about it. They've already told me what they think about it.
Well, you know, you're highly respected for, you know, putting it together, and, you know, it's greatly appreciated, and hopefully they'll, you know, run it through or get it on, at least on a ballot, you know, and let the voters, you know, make a decision on how they want to.
It's not the voters' decision. This is a straight ordinance for the county commission to pass, Mark.
I agree, David. And that's why you just need to, you know, it's just suggested that EPAC wait and see how this plays out, because.
But that's not your suggestion to make, Mark, with all due respect. This is an EPAC decision. Please let us make our own decisions, okay? You're not allowed to influence us.
That's fine.
Stand down from that. I want you to not tell us, you know, what you think on that.
I'm not doing that, David. David, you're reading a lot more into this than what I'm trying to relay to you. Is that
I give up. I can't get him to stop fighting us. So back to you, Nisha. I'm done.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's an important issue. It's a big issue, and definitely something you know, I think all of us at EPAC want to keep discussing, and so whenever it makes sense to bring it back up on the agenda, and continue discussing it. David, do you know the next like safe board meeting or someplace if any of the members are interested in kind of digging in a little more into the nuances of the issues surrounding the clean water ordinance? Do you know how we can kind of continue learning?
Safe Board effectively has been disbanded. Okay.
Okay.
New group. It'd be a nonprofit corporation. The North Florida Rights to Clean Water, and that'll be a 501c3 organization to accomplish, communicating about this. But basically, I'm working with several different organizations. The typical ones you'd expect would be like Sierra, would be ECJC, basically people who would otherwise be behind this anyway. League of Women Voters perhaps might support it. I don't know. I just want to see what's going to happen with it. But then the commission is well aware of this, and it's a matter of time. They're going to get feedback from the county attorney on it. And they've got they'll get feedback from the community on it, and they'll make their decision. And that's it. I mean, it's their decision. Not even the county attorney's decision. It's the Board of County Commissioners decision. But that's all there is. Right now, there is nothing. So anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely something. It's a huge issue. And I can, especially from the legal aspect, it feels like something that I want to kind of look into in terms of places that have implemented something like this and kind of what the real world implications have been for them, positive or negative or whatever. But yeah, I really appreciate you continuing to bring this to the meetings and educate us about it. And I think potentially at a future meeting there'll be something more productive we can do to support it.
I'll send you I'll send some information through Mark about two places. One is a township in Pennsylvania which has passed a rights of nature ordinance or a charter amendment. They made a charter amendment, and also the city of Pittsburgh made a charter amendment, and it's really sort of acts like like a holstered gun. Okay, meaning that they haven't had to use it. It's been passed as a part of the city charter for Pittsburgh for years and years now, and it was the sole reason they passed it was to keep fracking out of the city limits. And since they've done that, throughout Pennsylvania, you've got it with city limits all over, except for Pittsburgh because it's got that law in place. And the example I gave to you about people pumping fracking fluid into the ground, they wanted to do that in this one township, and the township they struggled with 4 or 5 years, but recently they were being sued by the state. They were being sued saying, well, you can't violate this, is state law, we preempted you can't do this. And they just said, no, we're passing this for our township, you're not going to tell us what we can and can't do here. And ultimately they won in Pennsylvania at least. So this isn't something that's unique to us. We're not first to do this. We're following in the footsteps. And actually, this goes back, to some early constitutional law before, this rule that came into place that allows preemption from state government. This goes back earlier than that. And how the U.S. was formed in the Constitution of Britain. It didn't say anything about corporations and that. It didn't say anything about preemptions of local, communities. It was all about local government, resisting government from across the ocean, from far away, which is kind of what we're doing here.
I'm just noticing the time, David, and I think we should wrap it up, but please do send those references that you just mentioned, pass them to Mark, and then he can forward it to the rest of the group, because I'd like to.
Everyone, please read the ordinance, and along with the frequently asked questions. I welcome any objections. Okay, I have no problem with your objecting and start saying, well, here's what could happen under this. Okay, and in the past we've looked at all those, and if things couldn't be answered by a frequently asked question, a lot of the objections that even the county attorney is going to come up with, I'm convinced are things that will settle themselves out very, very rapidly. In the state or county courts. So simple as that.
Okay, so any public comments before we wrap up? Or any comments? Okay, so I guess we'll adjourn. Sorry for the meeting going long, everyone, and I appreciate everybody sticking around. So
Good night.
Bye-bye,
have a
Nisha.
good night.
Everyone else.
Thank you,
Great
Kelly.
week.
Oh yeah,
Kelly.
thank you so much,
for
Kelly.
coming.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Kelly.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.